Welcome to the Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau on 1037 The Game, online at 1037thegame.com. We discuss the local issues affecting you and the Acadiana area with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. From time to time, we'll have special guests and always make time to take your calls. Now, time for the Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
All right, welcome to the Sport of Politics on 1037 The Game and 1037thegame.com. Also on KDCG TV tomorrow, Fridays at 7. Dave Schultz along with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. Good morning, Joel.
Good morning. Welcome back to town.
Thank you. I leave and the state goes to hell. I mean, what just happened there?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'm not sure if that's the correlation, but
right.
But it's there may be some correlation.
Well, I mean, we left here talking about how bad the budget was, and then again, I would tell you that John Bel Edwards was playing politics a little bit with the political theater of hyperbole, because if he just said, we're going to furlough some people and close some hospitals, no one would have said anything. But he mentioned the word football, and the world came crashing down on him.
Yeah, we mentioned football and tops and a few other things.
Right,
and I mean,
right.
It got everyone's attention, that's for sure.
Absolutely. All right, so if you want to give us a call, we'll be glad to take them and talk politics with you. 706-0111, 706-0111. All right, so what was your impressions of what the governor did and what's been happening in the last week or so in the special session?
Well, I mean, having suffered through it for a few years, certainly never to the extent that they have this year as it relates to the budget. There's a lot of stuff said to kind of get people off of center,
right,
and to start discussions and all of that. And so ultimately, I don't think football fans have much to worry about. I think there may be some adjustments made to tops, but overall, tops isn't going away.
Right.
And they'll figure something out only because they have to. I mean, that's the way, that the process works, is you have to have a balanced budget, which means at the end of the day, if you do nothing, you're going to have these massive cuts that will affect the healthcare community in football and higher ed and everything else, or you're going to have some revenue raisers, but you're not going to have the $1.9 billion of taxes that it would take. So in all likelihood, it'll be some combination of both.
See, I don't understand the whole. I was told from what I saw, the legislature and Governor Jindal underestimated, at least that's what their words are, underestimated the kids who would take advantage of TOPS, who would enroll in the TOPS and go to school here. How do you underestimate when you're giving kids free money to go to college? Wouldn't it be the other way? I know we've joked around here, you underpromise and overperform, but they were underpromising and under-delivering, I would say intentionally, but that's not what they said.
Yeah, I think it's...
They being you at the time, I
guess.
Yeah.
I would think that, just in the time that I was there, the TOPS program, maybe started at around $60 million and ended up probably close to $300 million. And it was originally set up as a reward for our, top-level students to as a way to avoid the brain drain that was happening. Our best and brightest going off to other schools in other parts of the country, and so this was a way to keep them here. Because typically if they go to school here, then they're going to stay here, they're going to start their businesses here.
Sure.
Whatever patents they come up with,
right,
they're going to be Louisiana-based patents, and so it'll, that was the reasoning behind it. And as government oftentimes does, that program got expanded to where you could...
Too successful.
And it got down to where you could have now a 17 on your ACT and get a top scholarship to go to Votech,
sure,
which is way more inclusive, but certainly different than what the original intention was. And so it expanded, to include more kids and to encourage them to go to college as opposed to just addressing the brain drain and the best and the brightest. And so I think those discussions are going to come up again. Do we go back to the original intent? There's discussion about going back to where it's only given to the best and the brightest. And then if we don't have enough money for that, then to make it need-based instead of merit-based. And so there's all kinds of discussions going on out there about what's going to happen. But at the end of the day, TOPS will exist in some form because it does work. It does encourage kids to go to college. It does encourage them to stay here. And so where it'll end up, I don't know, but it's not going away.
We're talking sport politics with Mayor President Joel Robideau on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com. I thought I had read, and you're welcome to correct me, that you need a 20 in the ACTs and 2.8 in college. I don't know what 20 ACT means. I never took that tested. And when I took the SATs, it was different, even though I think Alan told me on Sports Chat it's reverted back to the way it was, 800 verbal and 800 math. I barely eclipsed the 4-digit mark, so I wasn't Ivy League bound myself. But it seems like the requirements are a little bit low. A 2.8, while inclusive, does not seem to reward the best kids. And I appreciate the fact that you're looking to get as many kids into college, and maybe they need a little jump start to get them there and encouragement to go, along with some financial availability. But it would seem to be better off if we did. I mean, even if you did it to 3.0, I don't think that's the best and the brightest compared to like a 3.5. But I would raise that to a 3.0 minimum. Again, I don't know what the 20 for the ACTs is.
Yeah, I mean, a 20 is, the national average is right around that. Give or take a point. It might be 19 point something or 21 or something, but it's right.
So that's the average. See, I would raise that. I would raise that as well.
And that's the debate that the legislators are going to have with each other is do we raise it or not? And certainly if you raise it, then you don't need to worry about putting a cap on TOPS because effectively it works the same. You'll have less kids that qualify.
Sure. Like when I know scholarships were given out, in New York State, a minimum of 1,200 on the SATs. I wasn't close to that, but a minimum, something along those lines, and probably a 3.5 or a 4.0. So, before you're handing out any kind of money. All right, so someone who had been in that position, and we'll come back after the break and hear what my suggestions are and see your jaw drop.
That's a scary thought, yeah.
Right? What would be your suggestions for to raise revenue in state of Louisiana?
You want me to do that now or after you?
Well, let's take a break. You want to take a break? Let's take a break. All right. We'll take a break. We'll hear your suggestions, and then you'll hear my suggestions, and we'll see your jaw drop.
Okay.
All right, because I got two wild. Well, I don't say they're wild and wacky, but certainly probably not too popular. But in the end, they would absolutely raise revenue. All right, Dave Schultz, along with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau on the Sport of Politics on Acadiana Sports Station, 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com and mobile app powered by McDonald's.
Down in Acadiana, we got the Crawfish Festival in Acadiana. We got the Boudin Festival in Acadiana.
Now, back to Sport of Politics on 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
All right, welcome back to Sport of Politics. We'll be happy to take your phone calls, 706-0111, 706-0111. Dave Schultz, along with Joel Robideau, Lafayette City Parish Mayor President, on 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com, also on KDCG TV. All right, so obviously the state is in a bind with this budget, talking about cutting TOPS, talking about incompletes, and talking about no football, and obviously that's what got everyone's attention. What would be your suggestions for raising revenue or cutting spending, either one?
Yeah, I mean, both of those things have to occur.
Sure.
And it's a Republican majority, so
Right.
in reality, those guys, I'm assuming, are looking at where to cut.
Yes.
And saying where, you're not going to have the same reaction if you say, look, our visitor centers aren't going to be open 7 days a week,
Right.
8 hours a day. So, they're going to look to see everywhere that they can start to cut back. They're going to look at the contracts. I know Treasurer Kennedy had mentioned that. And so, whether you can breach those contracts by requiring 10% reductions or if you have to negotiate them is yet to be determined. But there's a lot of money that's out there. And so I think you'll see a push from the Republican side to make as many cuts as possible before having to hit higher ed to the point where football's in jeopardy, or to hit TOPS to where it's in jeopardy to any significant degree, and to where the physicians in the hospitals can still provide the
Right.
care that they need. We're all in tune with mental health crisis that's going on, and that's been underfunded, as long as I can remember.
Forever. Right.
And so any cut you make to healthcare, makes that even worse. And so there's a lot to look at, and you can shut down entirely the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Environment, you could shut all of those down and maybe get a couple $100 million, but you're $1.9 billion short. And so you could shut down every department of state government, and not even scratch the surface of what needs to happen. And when I say shut them down, I mean close them.
Right.
Lay everybody off and close them. And of course, you wouldn't be able to get permits and services and, all that. But that only gets you a few $100 million. And so, which is a lot of money, but relative to the problem at hand. So the other side of the equation is the revenue side. And you have to say, how do we attack that? When I was there, we decided we weren't going to go after individuals, and we weren't going to raise taxes in the traditional sense of, hey, your tax rate's 4%, we're going to bump it up to 5%. Hey, you're paying 4 cents in sales tax, we're going to add another penny to that sales. We didn't do any of that. What we did is we said, let's look at what the corporations get in tax credits and exclusions and deductions, because we don't all get that. When you and I go buy a mop at the hardware store,
Right.
we pay the full sales tax. Corporations get a bunch of tax breaks, and a bunch of really large corporations get those tax breaks. And they were put in place for various reasons. The most obvious is to stimulate the economy and allow them to have more money to hire more people and all of those things.
Right.
But we're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in credits and exemptions and exclusions. Actually, it's probably a few billion. And so I would think that they're going to look there first to say, hey, can we peel back some of those credits and exclusions and exemptions, which in effect raises taxes on those businesses, but you could make the argument that that's not a tax increase in the truest sense. We're not saying, hey, your tax rate is 2, 4, 6, 8%, and we're now going to add a 10% tax bracket for those that make over a certain amount. We're just saying we're going back to the 2, 4, 6, 8, and whatever those tax brackets say your tax is, that's what your tax is. We're going to peel back some of those exclusions. So I think the Republicans will then look at that secondly to see how much money they can get. And then, if that's not enough, then we start to run into the real problem.
What is the sales tax in Lafayette Parish?
It's 4 cents here in
It's
Lafayette.
only 4%.
4%. And there's a one TIF district out on Louisiana Avenue and Interstate 10, which adds a penny in order to pay for the road infrastructure and drainage that we built, because that intersection never existed. So we put a TIF district in place to say any sales tax that is collected there, we'll collect an extra penny, and we'll use that penny to build the roads and drainage to help promote development on those four corners of that intersection.
So when I go shopping, there's only 4% tax around here?
No, it's 4 you said for Lafayette Parish.
Okay.
The state's also 4.
Okay,
So it's
okay.
8. So it's
So it's
8%
All right, there you
in
go.
the city of Lafayette. Right.
That's high.
8 is high.
That is high. That's higher from where I came from. That 8 is close. I think it's higher up there now. It's like a New York City sales tax. I think New York City may be double digits by now.
Yeah,
But
well, and then they have
high.
and then they have an additional
Well, they got
additional city
the city payroll tax.
taxes
Yeah,
right on there.
yeah.
So they have a few other taxes.
If you
that-
commute into the city, yeah, that's an issue. All right, so here are my suggestions.
Okay.
All right.
I'm
I
nervous.
showed you the numbers real quick.
Oh yeah.
All right. The way to generate revenue fast, legalize marijuana. Colorado raised $52 million in the first year of legalization. They got $85 million in the second year of legalization. That's just on the taxes. We could do the math real quick, just under $138 million. I understand that's not a immediate situation, but if you look down the road 10 years, and we think the Colorado taxes are going to level off eventually in terms of the revenue, and maybe even go down a little bit, but still, to generate that kind of revenue, that's a lot of money in a direction that it seems this country is going in. I know there's some people who are morally against it, but I would tell you it's more about the people who have the cigarettes, who have the alcohol, and who have the prescription drugs that are more against it than anything else because, well, that would be maybe the choice of your choice if you had that opportunity.
Does that $52 million include the additional sales tax on Fritos and
right?
And
no, I don't think it does. That's
okay.
right. They, Peyton Manning said he was doing very well with his Papa John's out in Colorado. He's been a benefit of that.
Yeah, I understand.
At least
that,
these and Dino's may be all for it.
yeah. I don't know, but they, I think Louisiana will be one of the probably last states to pass that. I haven't served in the legislature. There's a lot of retired sheriffs that serve as legislators.
Sure.
Now, I say that we did pass, medical marijuana last session, which was, long overdue, but it took a lot to get that passed. And so based on that, I guess I could argue both sides, I would say, because it had been tried before and had failed, but it ultimately passed last year. And we actually named the legislation after Sheriff Newstrom's daughter, who had pushed for it because she's since passed and left some young kids. And she had said that although it wouldn't have cured her cancer situation, it certainly would have allowed her a quality of life to spend time with her kids, where she wasn't so debilitated. And so that passed. So that shows that there is a little bit change in mindset over the course of the last decade. But at the same time, I just think Louisiana's further away than a lot of other states.
All right. And then the other suggestion, again, not going to go over well in this part of the country, but a gas tax.
Now, when you say a gas tax, you mean at the pump or at the refineries or
at the pump? 50-cent gas tax.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be that well received either.
No,
but
it wouldn't, but would raise revenue. I don't think any tax is going to be well received, period. But
well, yeah, that's true.
A gas tax is something that would generate revenue immediately, whereas if you're going to legalize marijuana, it may have to pass a poll, an election, and then you'd have to take a little bit of time to implement it. Again, I'll be happy to go to Colorado and Washington State to see how they did that. But a gas tax could be something that could be implemented immediately. And again, I know it would hurt a lot of people, but that would help out with the revenue side.
And so you're not quite as crazy as you may think, because there was some legislation over the course of the last couple of years. One of the gas tax that we have in place is a flat, say 20 cents on whatever. And so as the price of fuel goes up and down, that 20 cents is 20 cents. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And it's been in place now for a very long time. And I think most everybody knows across the state that our transportation infrastructure is woefully short of where it should be. There's probably a $12 billion backlog on repairs and maintenance and road work that DOTD is staring down. And so there's been discussion about why don't we make that tax a floating tax, and as a percentage of 20% of the price of gas. And so as the price increases, you'd realize a little bit more taxes. As it decreases, it would go down. But right now,
isn't that how the state got into trouble to begin with? I wouldn't make it a floating tax because then less revenue.
Well, if they made it a floating tax, I would think they would base it on hey, what do we get now? And so at $2 a gallon or whatever, this percentage gets us where we are now. If it goes up, it goes up. The argument, obviously, against that is that, well, when gas is $4, do we really want to make it even more expensive by making the tax higher? And that's kind of been the opposition saying, well, that doesn't seem to make sense. It kind of seems like it ought to work the other way. But it has been discussed. So I'm sorry to tell you, you're not the first first one to come up with the gas tax.
Wow.
Yeah, but.
Well, I mean, that could go back to our, we had a caller last week, Tommy in Lafayette, who mentioned that. And part of the reason we don't have, other modes of energy is because gas is too low. There's no impetus to come up with something. Even in Florida, it was $1.76, and we could pay. I've never got an ethanol, so I was afraid to put that in the car yesterday. But that was $1.59. Yeah, even though that costs more to me.
Right, and then one other thing that you have to realize is when we put the 20 cents on, cars didn't get the gas mileage that they get now.
Right,
so people are buying less gas which means we're collecting even less revenue from the 20 cents. So,
and another quick question: Did you notice when the gas prices were skyrocketing, were people driving less? I don't think that wasn't an issue, especially here in Lafayette. I know in major cities, maybe there's walking.
Maybe some carpooling. It's just that
but
hasn't made its way here yet.
It didn't really do that. In fact, from my understanding, when gas prices go down, they actually spend the money on premium gasoline. They have the extra money to go down. All right, let's quickly take a phone call on the ropesoapanddope.com hotline. Fabio joining Joel Robideau on the Sport of Politics. Good morning, Fabio. Thanks for calling.
Good morning, gentlemen. Enjoying the discussion. Listen, about the football threat that Governor Edwards made, it reminded me of the story of a visitor to a farm, and he was watching the farmer go out to plow a field with a Buell-pulled plow. And so he followed him out there, and you watched the farmer pick up a 2x4 and then just slap the mule in the face with the 2x4. And the guy said, well, what's that for? He said, well, before you get them to move, you got to get their attention first.
Right.
And so I think that's pretty much what that was all about.
Exactly.
Listen, a couple other revenue possibilities. Reinstituting the Stelly plan, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes next to the SAVE Act the legislature ever made. I can't believe that it was passed by the people of the state, and then the legislature unilaterally guaranteed a $400 million deficit annually by removing half of the Stelly plan. The other thing is the criminal justice system. We're spending too much money both incarcerating prisoners in state prisons and paying sheriffs to keep prisoners because we don't have enough space in state prisons. And finally, I think that the legislature should finally get out of the higher education business as far as setting tuition for colleges. Appreciate the discussion, and I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Thanks, Fabio. A couple things he mentioned. One of the other benefits by legalizing marijuana would be you could allow the sheriffs to go after the more harder drugs and lowering the incarceration rate. Before Justice Scalia passed away, that was the one thing that could have got done federally because Republicans and Democrats agree on that. But Fabio had some good suggestions. Why don't you discuss the Stelly Act?
Right. Well, and the issue with the Stelly Act is, when we repealed that, first it was a portion of it got repealed under Governor Blanco, and then under Governor Jindal we repealed the other another big portion of it. But the portion that was left untouched was where Stelly got rid of sales tax on food and drugs, right. And so and so that's still out there. You don't pay taxes on food and drugs, and I just don't see how the legislature is going to put that tax back on, because it's the most regressive tax that you could put on, is because everyone has to eat. It doesn't matter how hard you work and how little money you make.
Right.
You still have to go buy rice to feed your kids, and to put that tax back on just seems inherently kind of unfair.
Right.
And so I don't see that being an option. Now, to his point, we should have never taken the other part of Stelly off, is what he's arguing, saying, well, we had raised income tax rates to offset the income loss from taking the tax away from food and groceries, and banking on the fact that the income tax rates, those additional rates would grow over time, and so it would end up being a benefit to the state. So we took we took and repealed those taxes, those tax increases under the two governors, and that's probably about a $300 million hit to the budget when we did it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Someone going to raise my Powerball tickets $1? Is that going to happen?
That could happen. I mean, they'd have to probably change legislation, because that's,
Right.
it's dedicated to certain areas, and so you wouldn't be able to raise it and then just use it in the general fund as you wanted.
All right, Sport of Politics will roll on. We'll get to some local conversations. Still welcome to take your phone calls on the ropesoapanddope.com hotline, 7060111, 7060111. Dave Schultz along with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau on 103.7 The Game.
back to Sport and Politics on 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com.
All right, Dave Schultz along with Mayor President Joel Robideau. It's a big weekend around here. I mean,
Baseball,
softball,
softball.
and softball. Basketball out on a little road trip here, but it should be a lot of fun. I mean, I know the Cajuns are nationally ranked softball-wise, but the Ducks seem to get a little bit more national exposure because of, Nike. But that's a big weekend. And it all today is the calm before the storm, as it all picks up tomorrow with 2.
Yeah, and I'm kind of I'm gonna be out of town tomorrow, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say or not, but I was invited to throw out the first pitch for the girls softball, and I had to decline because I'm leaving to go out of town.
Well, what about your co-host?
You know what? I wasn't sure.
Right
I wasn't sure you were going to be back, and I didn't want to, tie their hands.
Now I've gotten a couple of hits, with the Cane Cutters. They have softball night.
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten a couple of hits off of the softball pitchers. I've won it the last 2 years. I will pat myself on the shoulder and say that.
They probably hit your bat for you.
That very well could be the case.
Yeah.
My eyes tend not to be open.
Yeah, and they're pretty accurate.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. All right, Dave Schultz along with Joel Robideau on the Sport of Politics. We'll continue to take your phone calls. If you do have suggestions on how to fix the state budget, all ears. All right, well, let's talk some local politics. You did name Robert Benoit to your administration. Tell us about it.
Yeah, and not to confuse anybody, but only in South Louisiana. Robert Benoit is our fire chief.
Okay.
And the Robert Benoit that I'm hiring to bring in is a different Robert Benoit.
Really? 2 people named Benoit in Louisiana and Lafayette. What a shock.
And so there'll be 2 Robert Benoits.
Okay.
But Robert Benoit is a name that been around Lafayette for a while. He was a former public works director before consolidated government. He was a public works director after consolidated government. He was director of planning and zoning. He left under the Blanco administration and started to work with Chafalaya Basin Commission, then with the Department of Natural Resources under the cabinet secretary there. He's currently, or most recently, the chief of staff for the secretary for Department of Natural Resources. So he's an impressive individual that has incredible experience and knowledge of our area, and so he's going to be a tremendous asset for us, and I'm thrilled that he agreed to come back home and help out in my administration.
All right, well, let's talk about it. Your administration is at just, we're 6 weeks into it?
That's about it.
Yep. All right, so what has been the most surprising part of getting things underway? As someone who's been in government a while, but now you're in charge.
Yeah, and I can't say there's really been anything surprising. I mean, what's been pleasantly, but I hate to use the word surprising, is, I've got directors for all these different departments, and, they're all so, hardworking, and they're just doing everything in their power to make my job easy and do, and do what needs to be done as it relates to road projects, drainage projects, planning and zoning, community development, our fire and police chief. Everyone's just on board. We correspond well into every night, via text, and technology allows us to do that now. And
which is good and bad.
It's good and bad, but from a government standpoint, it's good because that doesn't really ever stop. It really is a 24-hour job, and everybody's on board. Everybody's pulling the wagon. It's been as good as I could have ever asked for it to work. It's been a smooth transition, and it's only because all of the employees are working so hard to make it as good a government as it can be.
How's the flattening sidewalk project coming along on Congress?
Yeah.
My own little pet project.
Yeah, your pet project. I brought it up, and coordination did come up.
Okay.
And I don't mean coordination between departments. I mean maybe it's something that
I have to work on.
Yeah,
yes,
it's something
yes.
It might be as much your fault as the government.
I've ran in D.C. The sidewalks are flat. I had a nice trail in Miami. The sidewalk is flat. We need to, if you're going to have that University Avenue beautification project, the sidewalks need to be flat.
I agree with that.
We're talking Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau. Okay, so what is this taxi cab ordinance that's being discussed and passed, I guess?
Yeah, and so there's the, I think nationally, communities all around are are having this debate between the Uber
Right.
and not the Uber. Make me
Right.
sound like I'm 80 years old.
Right.
But between Uber and
Or the internets.
and the that's right. And the taxis and the regulations of both of those, and do we regulate them the same because they provide similar services? Do we regulate them differently? And so the conversation had started prior to me getting into office, and then it continued on, and there's been some edits, and so finally it came before the council, but not without, an hour and a half of discussion, which
Sure.
is was needed. I mean, the public needs to understand, the situation, and there's certainly a large segment of the population that says it's convenient, it does a better job.
Yeah, it does.
Don't do anything to prevent them from wanting to do business here.
Right.
And it's hard to argue that. I mean, they do have an incredible business model, albeit it is a little bit different than the taxis, and so they're not regulated in exactly the same way. Now, they're also not allowed to do some of the things they can't just have people flag them down on the street and pick them up. They can't just go park at the airport and wait for someone to flag them down.
Right. There's not a whole lot of flagging down at taxis in Lafayette.
There's
this is
no-
not
there's
exactly.
No, that's right. And so, Uber has this internet-based model,
Right.
And taxi service is not done that. Now, there's nothing to prevent the taxi service from becoming Uber drivers as part of it, and probably benefiting from some additional revenue there. But
Sure.
I'd like to see the face of somebody that went on the internet and went on their phone and requested an Uber, and then a yellow taxi showed up. But that certainly could happen, and that's an option for the taxi.
Yeah,
service, you know?
Obviously, people are driving their personal cars, keep them clean. There's a standard there. I haven't had an issue. Small,
Right.
big pickup trucks to SUVs to smaller, more gas economical cars. But to tell you, I apologize for not putting my money into the coffers, going away for a week. $5 to the airport, $6.11 coming back from the airport. I mean, that's Uber, and the guy was waiting for me. He had just pulled up to the airport when my bags came out. So they came out quick yesterday, we'll say that. So
Yeah. Well, and
such a benefit, because I've tried when I would say go out and maybe had a little bit too much adult beverage to call a cab, and it took forever
And
on a weekend night. Uber,
Right.
you got to wait a little bit, but they do get around to you.
yeah, but is it fair to the cab and the limousine companies that we require them to go to the police to get a background check for all their drivers, but
Sure.
we allow Uber to self-regulate? They do their own background checks.
Right.
Now, the argument was made during the debate that Uber's background checks are probably more in depth than the ones that we require, but we do require the other ones to go and do it and pay to have that done, whereas we don't require that of Uber. So there's an issue of fairness that, I don't think the debate is finished, but I think Uber's here to stay. I mean, the public loves it, and
Right.
so
right.
I think the council did a really good job of listening to all sides and including that in their decision making process. So
What are they deciding on?
well, they decided to with some very very minor modifications that Uber is going to be allowed to operate
All right.
and not be required to do everything exactly like the taxis and limousine drivers are required to do.
All right, and now another sticky situation, the General Alfred Mouton statue. What's going on there?
Yeah, so there's a scheduled hearing on Tuesday, and I would encourage the public to certainly come to the meeting on Tuesday to hear arguments as to either why or why not the statue should be moved. Every meeting there's an element of public discussion, and so at this last meeting there was a large number of members of the public that came and talked about the statue, and so Tuesday I don't think there's any ordinance. There's no vote that's going to be up at the meeting on Tuesday, but it is an opportunity for the public to come and to be heard, and so that's what this process is about. I mean, we need to, we use that kind of as a referendum to decide what we do and what we don't do. So we heard a lot of from the public on why not to move it at this past Tuesday council meeting. I'm sure we'll hear some from the other side of the argument at the upcoming one. And so ultimately what's going to happen, it's hard to tell, but I think it's good that we're having the discussion and getting everybody the information that's out there, and we'll see where it goes.
Where would it be moved to?
Oh, that's even premature. I mean, because I don't even.
Oh, so they
know.
don't even have, they just want to move it out in front of.
Yeah,
City Hall.
and there's been some suggestions. Yeah, I mean, they just want it out.
Well, if you're going to move it, you got to have a place to move it to. I would.
And then it was brought up
thing.
about there's a permanent injunction against moving it.
Right.
It's been compromised in the court of law between two parties, and so I'm not even sure. Again, the legal staff for the administration is still looking at that, and they haven't come back to me with any final opinion. But so there's a lot. There's a lot to discuss, but it's healthy and it's good.
Sure.
And I just want to remind everybody that this is a community that, like every community, has some issues, but we are a community that's bigger than that.
Right.
And we're very inclusive, and I feel like ultimately I don't want this to become something that starts to tear us apart. We need to get all the information out there, and ultimately figure out a way that we all continue to do what's best for our community.
All right, let's take a break. More sport of politics next with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joe Robideau on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game.
Now, back to Sport of Politics on 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com with Lafayette City Parish Mayor President Joel Robideau. Here's your host, Dave Schultz.
Hi, welcome back to the Sport of Politics with Joel Robideau on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com, along with KDCG TV Fridays at 7. We were talking state budget early on in the show. If anyone's got any suggestions, apparently one of my ideas is off the wall. Legalizing marijuana. That's not going to happen, according to Mayor President Joel. But he did say that the raising of the gas price may not be quite off the wall. We'll see what happens moving forward. All right, but locally here, you did have opened up another fire station. Fire Station 14.
We did. We had the ribbon cutting yesterday. I think it was,
Where is this?
This is off of Curran Lane, which is kind of behind the Super Walmart off of Ambassador.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There had been a lot of development out that area, and the rating analysis guys had come in, sometime during the summer, fall, and said we need, or actually a couple years, and said we needed to keep our fire rating where it is, and so we, the Durrell administration got that underway, got it done. I'm the beneficiary of it and get to cut the ribbon.
Right.
6 months into my term, but it was something that was needed. It's a great state-of-the-art facility, and again, it's important to do because of the fire rating, because that's what our insurance rates are based on. So for all property owners and all, it helps. Not just the obvious help in that it's, they're 2 and 3 minutes away now,
right,
and closer to those developments, but in those neighborhoods, but also helps us all, and that it keeps our fire rating in a good position to where we don't have our rates raised.
Any word on the Verret School Road project?
We have not had a ribbon cutting or a groundbreaking for that yet, but it's underway.
Oh,
anybody that's driving on it now can see it's underway, and the state,
obviously, I don't.
Right, the state's moving forward with that project,
Okay.
So it's exciting.
Do you need a ribbon cutting?
You know what? If it's going to slow the project down, we don't need one.
Right.
People want that road done.
Cut the ribbon when it's done.
Yeah, there you go. We'll cut the ribbon when it's done.
Cut the ribbon when it's done. All right. Also, we do have, this is a big issue for you, this Target Zero. We're going to have a town hall meeting. Why don't you talk to us about this?
Oh, yeah. That's related to the no-kill, trying to get the animal shelter to a no-kill status. And there's a national group that called Target Zero. They're going to be actually in town next week on Wednesday evening to come and explain to me and to the public on the work that they do with municipal animal shelters to help them get to a no-kill status. And so that'll be, I think it's at 6 o'clock Wednesday at the P-Card Center, which is off of DeVal Court, where Light and behind the Lone Funeral Home. And so we encourage the public to come because ultimately we're limited in staff, we're limited in size, we're limited by whatever government's limited by. So it's going to take a community-wide effort. It's going to take a lot of volunteers. It's going to take a lot of help for us to achieve this. And so I would encourage the public to please come out, hear what they have to say, and they'll give us the direction of where volunteers are needed and what the different job duties are that we'll need help with. And so it'll be something that I'm looking forward to. And I think a large segment of the population is really excited about this. So it'll be Wednesday's kind of the start of it all. So
Right.
I encourage everybody to show up and find out what it's about.
So how long would that process take?
Well, in talking to them, it's not a quick process.
No, I
I mean,
presume it wouldn't
you
be.
can go from wherever you are and have some significant improvement and maybe reduce it by 50% in a year
That's
or
a
so.
lot. Right.
But once you get to that point, then the progress is a lot slower. So I've set a goal for my first term. I'm saying, look, in the fourth year, at some point, I'd like to be at no kill or certainly as close as possible. So that's the goal. Just start working towards getting that designation, and I think it's a laudable goal, and it's something that, based on the public outreach towards me and my office, that the public's really excited about too.
See, that seems to have a lot of the under-promise, over-perform that we've been talking about. All right, there you go. All right, do we have Matt in Lafayette on the Rope Soap and Dope.com hotline? Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Dave. Mr. Robideau, I was just wondering what you thought of possibly legalizing marijuana for the state to bring in a new industry to maybe help out with our budget deficit. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I appreciate that, and Dave, of course, is now mad at you because he had that idea earlier in the hour and was talking about talking about that exact same thing. And it's while it's certainly a revenue source and it's certainly something that other states are doing, I explained to Dave that I didn't think it was going to happen in Louisiana anytime soon. There's a lot of retired law enforcement folks that serve as legislators, and it's just that discussion, at the Capitol has never really, taken hold and gotten legs and gotten the support that it would need to pass. Now, we've also never had this budget deficit.
Right, I was going to say, you find yourself in a $2 billion deficit, all of a sudden someone's going to,
that's right.
some Yankee radio announcer is going to suggest it.
Yeah, that's right. And Matt.
And Matt, yeah.
And look, there's always been a push. I mean, there's always been a push and a lobbying effort for that to happen. And but again, we're in a different situation. I'm just saying I think Louisiana's a little further away from that happening than a lot of other states.
All right, well, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
He asked you what you thought.
Oh,
not if Louisiana's going to do it. Would you be pro or against it?
Yeah, no, I'm not for it. I'm not for it. Yeah, I'm against it.
All right, that's what it sounded like, but I wanted to make sure Matt got an answer to his question. All right, we'll be back to wrap things up on the Sport of Politics on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game.
Back to Sport of Politics on 103.7 The Game and 103.7thegame.com.
All right, Dave Schultz, along with Joel Robideau, just about wrapping things up. We still have time to take a phone call or two. If you do, give us a call on the ropesoapadope.com hotline, 706-0111, 706-0111. In the break, it was interesting, Joel, you did mention, when the legislature did pass or getting towards passing medical marijuana, it quickly went towards money. So if you had this issue, you can bring it up, what it was then to what it would be now. I mean, again, for fans of Justify, that was what the whole last season was about, was who's going to grow it.
Yeah, and the discussion, once we decided and it became clear that we were going to pass it for the medicinal uses, highly regulated, I might add.
Sure.
Just like all narcotics are, highly regulated.
Some more highly regulated than others.
That's right. The conversation quickly switched in the halls of the Capitol, not necessarily in the debate, but outside.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to grow it? Are we going to just buy it from another state? Why would we do that? shouldn't we cultivate it ourselves? Does it make sense for the ag centers to do that, or Angola,
Right.
someplace that so the state's realizing the revenue from it, or certainly not having to pay for it, and then all the pros and cons associated with that.
So what did happen?
It's being figured out as we speak.
Oh, okay.
We hadn't. I don't think they've come to any decision. I mean, the ag center is an obvious place, but which
Right.
farmer, who's going to do it?
Right.
Because there's money involved.
Yeah, it could be a lot of it.
And there's a lot of folks that would like that contract.
Surprisingly, when this was brought to California and made, you would think, California, we're going to legalize it. Of course, the people who didn't want it legalized, it wasn't the, quote, drug cartels. It was the, small-time guys who didn't want to see their price drop for their product, because that's exactly what would happen. All of a sudden, if you make it legal, anybody can get it and grow it. So,
Yeah,
as long as it's
It'd be
regulated.
interesting to see that small group of dealers lobby the legislature, though. I'm not sure they'd get an audience.
that'd be funny, depending on what gifts they brought for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
legislators. All right, we want to thank Mayor Joel 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah,
You're on fire.
on fire.
You're on fire. You'll be back next week.
I'm not committed. I mean, I put up with you for 2 weeks in a
Right,
row.
right. Well, I was on
I don't know if
vacation.
two's my limit. I'm gonna try to be back next
I
week.
came back just for this show.
Oh, thank you.
All
I
right.
appreciate
When
that.
I take the vacation for the parents' 50th wedding anniversary, you'd be
I'll
solo.
be on my own.
Yeah, you'll be solo.
Well, I will say I'm happy to work with your replacement because he did a great job.
Very nice, very nice. All right. Thanks to Alan Michael, Matt LeBlanc. Also, everyone did a bang-up job. Dylan as well. All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Sport of Politics. We'll be back tomorrow with Sports Chat 7 a.m. On Friday at 6. And, of course, you got the Dan Patrick Show coming up next on Acadiana Sports Station 103.7 The Game.